Hi, everybody. We are live. It is Tuesday, and you are with the fabulous Laura Mazzullo and me. Hey, Laura.
Hello. I love that we get to do this from New York to the UK.
No, it's amazing. We're going across everybody. And I don't know if we seem to both be overly excited about today's conversation, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I don't know if we've hit the point of just being totally delirious.
Yeah, I think it is very funny. Of all the topics we've had so far, the fact that we're talking about fatigue and we're like, I can't wait. But I hope everyone watching and listening knows that we are right there with you. I think we need this talk.
Absolutely. So if you are watching and you want to say hi, post us some comments. If you've got questions as we go through, feel free to drop those in the box, and we will do what we can to get those answered for you. For those of you that are, I suppose, new to either watching live or watching on the replay, I think we started, I was thinking about this yesterday, I think we started this in October. We probably could have done with starting it in March when we both started having the conversations, but I think it was October. It was like, right, let's take these live.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I regret that we didn't record some of our talks before then. But now we've made them public for you all to learn. And yeah, no, it's true. I feel like we've been talking our way through this pandemic to keep better understanding ourselves and each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've been talking weekly since March.
Absolutely. Yeah.
9 months.
Yeah.
Lives for 2 months. It's a long time.
It's a beautiful thing. I know. I think we all need to communicate more to get through these types of crises.
Absolutely.
And I think having a safe place to do that is so important. So I don't take it for granted that we have each other.
No, me neither. Hugely grateful. So yeah, it's been awesome. And for those of you that have been watching regularly, you'll see that I still haven't sorted my lights out. So Laura still looks like sunny New York, and I still look like grey and doomy Luke.
There's a link to the fancy light that I got as a gift from Bamboo HR. When I spoke, they sent me this beautiful camera with a light. So I did send the link to Kelly. Maybe she'll treat herself for Christmas.
I'm gonna have to do something because I just keep getting more and more gloomy. But I have seen nothing but fog for the last 2 days. I know you were out walking around the park yesterday. You posted that beautiful picture of the park. I've just had fog.
Yeah, but you had the owl this morning.
We did. We had an owl in the garden that was perched for hours. I don't think it left until about lunchtime. So
Kelly posted a photo on her Instagram, and it was so beautiful for me to see it this morning. I just thought, wow, what a magical creature. I love it.
It was. We had a little owl.
Yeah.
Which makes me think there's probably lots of food for it in the garden somewhere. So we're hoping we don't get loads of stuff in the house. So so again, I think different polarities. So not only are Laura and I coming from completely different countries, like oceans apart, but Laura's definitely city, and I'm in the middle of nowhere, like literally in the country.
Yeah.
Surrounded by owls.
City mouse and country mouse.
Yeah.
Such a cute image in my brain.
That's what we are. Yeah, that's what we are. But one day we will both get to experience.
It's the yin and the yang. It's the extrovert, introvert, city, country. It's so cool.
It is. And you are definite extrovert and I am definite introvert.
Exactly.
There we go. So do you want to introduce today's topic? So we're talking emotional fatigue.
Yeah. So emotional fatigue came up. So Kelly and I try to talk once a week around, what we're seeing in the HR community and what we see as like an area of development, places that people are struggling. This just kept coming up for us, where we're talking to people in tears, literally daily, who are exhausted, who feel like this year has just stretched them beyond capacity. And we said we have to talk about this because it's obviously very complex and complicated, and I'm sure it's layered in, social conditioning, HR conditioning, and then also just people's just how we're built and how we're wired. But I think we have to address it as a real situation facing the community right now, especially in December. I think December generally is a month of added pressure and added exhaustion, but I think this year it's compounded with the pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I was reflecting on that, how do I normally feel when it comes to December? And I think ordinarily I kind of get that last kind of like energy burst. Like part of me is exhausted because obviously we start to get darker nights, like dark is hitting earlier, less sunlight, darker mornings, all of that sort of stuff. But at the same time, I usually get this energy push of, right, last month, got to make it big, want to get all my planning done, do my reflections on the year that's gone, set my big exciting goals for the year ahead. And I think I'm at the point this year where I'm just like I'm not setting any goals. I think I've part of this year, in some ways, it has been nice to just see what happens and just flow with it a bit. So I'm not setting any goals for next year. Like you and I have spoken about, like when the world is open again, we are definitely traveling. We are going to be doing stuff together. But other than that, I just want to be able to see where stuff goes. So I think even that kind of push and drive for me as to how I would normally finish the year has gone. Like I really don't have that. But I was also then thinking about, from me personally, all of the other stuff that's happened. So we've obviously been in pandemic, we've been in global pandemic, we've had uncertainty about business, we've moved house, one of my sons has joined the Navy, I turned 40, there's been kind of all of this stuff happening. I mean, moving house is stressful enough anyway, but I think I had a conversation with somebody this morning. I'm at the point where I could literally just go into hibernation. Like I could just hibernate from now until probably February and not come out, because that's how drained I feel.
Yeah.
And I know both of us are having lots of conversation. Like we've said, we've been speaking to people that have been in tears. We have been speaking to people that are just really, really struggling. And even having those conversations takes a lot of energy. Like I have to be really high energy in order to have those kind of conversations with clients or other people in the HR community. And I'm recognizing I'm not 100, like my energy is not 100% full and hasn't been for a good few months. So then continuing to have those conversations with other people, it just feels like kind of every day I'm in this kind of energy depletion stage. And it's taking so much energy. I know, like we've both got talks and stuff that we're doing this week. We've both got talks and workshops. But it kind of feels like for me, like that's going to take double the energy to get me to a place so that I can deliver to those people that are going to be sat there. And just the thought of having to do that is enough to exhaust me again. And that kind of feels like a cycle that I've been going through. I know we've kind of been having some similar feelings about that, but we are absolutely, aren't we, hearing from so many people, exhaustion, tired, had enough, worn out, heavy, all of that kind of stuff is just repetitive.
Yeah, completely. And I think like what you're saying is this feeling of needing to be on. And I don't mean performing. I think you and I are both so authentic in how we show up for people and each other, but it's like this need to sort of be there for them. And I think what's hitting me in December is this recognition that also I have to be there for myself. So like I'm also tired. I also need a good cry. I also need to just rest. And so I think we've been giving that advice out like so much with so much love and generosity of spirit. But I think sometimes as givers, we've sort of neglected ourselves in that messaging. And that I do see very common with HR pros. There's this kind of this call to rise. I mean, I remember Mark saying to someone, I'm perfect in these scenarios. I always feel like I'm called to the occasion. I mean, it was such this ego-driven thought in my head, but it's true. My strength is emotional intelligence. So in a time of crisis, I feel like I can lead the troops in a way. But there's a downside to that, which is that we don't say no enough because we feel like we owe all of these people a safe space, and then maybe don't actually make one for ourselves.
Yeah,
or receive it. I always say like I want to work on receiving it because I'm good at giving it, right? But to take it in is like a different skill set altogether.
Yeah, we spoke again last week as well, didn't we, about the depth of the relationship and the conversations that we individually have. And I think we share that with one another. But the two of us are not very good at like superficial relationships and superficial conversations. Like we want to dig deep, which in itself takes time and energy and all of those sorts of things to get curious, to get connecting to people, to kind of do all of that sort of stuff. And part of that is it is that kind of seesaw kind of push pull, isn't it? Because it's like we thrive from that and that gives us energy, but at the same time to be that on and to be that present and to give that other person and that conversation and relationship kind of 100% whilst you're in the moment can also be really draining. And if we're not filling ourselves up when we're not having those conversations, I know we both had a few weeks ago, didn't we? You were feeling guilty because I told you to have a swim. You were staying at your parents and it was like, Laura, get in the swimming pool. And there have been times where I've been like, I just need to go for a walk. And then it's like if I'm walking, I can't be reaching out to people. I'm going to have to be saying no to people. And then it's like, but we've been constantly saying this year, look after yourself. Make sure that you're looking after yourselves. Keep filling yourself up. But within that, we've both had moments of, but we can't turn off.
There's such an enormous guilt. Like, it's a wild feeling because I get so many introductory notes from HR job seekers, right, who are feeling really frustrated. They want to know if I have searches for them. They want help. And I literally respond to every one, which every other recruiter thinks I'm out of my mind for doing so because it's so hard to do it because of the volume, but also just the energy, because then, of course, you're going to get on a call. Of course, that call is going to be an hour long. There's no 15-minute catch-up when it's about someone's career. And I was finding like people have been replying like, wow, thanks for the response. And I feel so good that like, okay, someone replied to them. They've probably written this email to 50 people and no one replied. But I literally had this epiphany the other day. I'm like, I have emailed, well over 1,000 HR leaders since March, individually, one by one, with personalized notes, with thoughtful messages. I hear back from so few. And I suppose I've never thought like, well, I don't get responses. Like, it's okay. It's the way it goes. I'm so glad that I can respond to people because I know how it feels, but also I need to acknowledge how tired I am of sending introductory notes that don't get received. It's like, I think I didn't flip the script that like, oh, I'm also someone who does a lot of output, and doesn't always receive something back.
And we don't, and some of that comes from you just made me think of a woman, actually. There's a woman called Heather McGregor who runs, I think she still does it, a marketing company here in the UK. I think she works globally. And she used to write for I think it was the Financial Times. She used to do a column called Mrs. Moneypenny. And I remember she was at a Women in Leadership event at the London Business School a few years ago. Some incredible speakers. Like, it was the first time I'd seen Jo Malone speak. There were some women that had come over from the US, incredible, incredible women. And this Heather McGregor would say, she responds to every single email. So if you send her an email, she will respond, but there is no time limit on it. And I remember her saying at the event, and I got to speak to her afterwards, and she, just drop me an email, let me know, kind of, I want to learn more about you, drop me an email. But I will respond, but I'm not going to tell you when. And it took months, but I got a response from her, and the response was amazing. It was thoughtful, it was kind. She had really paid attention. She had taken it off her own back then to have a look at my website and have a look at some other stuff. And she gave me some really, really helpful tips. And I think in some cases, that felt even more wonderful than she could have just replied, yeah, great to meet you.
Right.
And I might have then felt, well, that was pointless. Like, what was the actual point in that? But she gave, but gave no limits on that.
Yeah.
And I loved that from her. And she was very much, again, talking about, like, I don't set time limits. I will genuinely come back to everybody, but I don't set time limits because I also need time for myself. And again, I think you and I, and again, a lot of people within HR, we do put pressure. We've got 100 emails, 1,000 emails that we, and it's like we need to respond to everybody today.
Yeah, maybe it's because we're such empaths that we see these as people. They're not just emails. There's a human being behind that email that's having a tough time.
Yeah.
So it's like, I see it as a form of outreach, like literal emotional outreach. And so to your point, they are worthy of a response. They deserve a response. They will get one. They may not get one right away. And if one of us slack off on the response time, we have to help each other. Like, so I hope any recruiter listening to this thinks, okay, then I'll get the next one, or we got to keep doing it as a team, because if there's only a few of us doing a great job of responding, or if you're an HR leader and you get an introductory email from me, it's not a sales email. It's just a genuine desire to connect. So to reply to me tells me that you care about me as a human being. And that feels good. Don't we want more of that? Yeah. I just saw this quote I have on my desk. I've never shown you because I've been at my parents' house so long, but it says, when you say yes to others, make sure you are not saying no to yourself.
I love that.
I wrote this out a few years ago. Someone had told it to me. I have no idea who now, but it's such a good reminder that, like, it's okay to say yes to others. It means you're a good and caring person. It's just like, are we doing that at the cost of saying no to ourselves? And I think that's what creates the emotional fatigue we're feeling this month.
Yeah, and I think so. I don't know if you've got examples, but again, I mean, I can speak personally, but I can also kind of talk from a client and from a connections perspective. But I think, have you got anything that, like, where you've really seen this emotional fatigue playing out in people? So either yourself or through some of the conversations that you're having?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from HR leaders in New York is that there's almost this recognition of how hard the year has been now. So like in March through, I don't even know, October, November, there was this, it is what it is. Oh, well, what are we going to do? We're resilient. No big deal. We can do anything. We've been through worse. I would go so far to say it was sort of dismissive about this pandemic because we were in the thick of the crisis. I think that's probably a coping mechanism. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm sure there was a certain level of just keep going through this. You can't stop and question, just keep moving. I mean, it's really kind of, it was the motto, right? Cuomo was like, New York tough, New York strong. It was just, people were kind of like in that amazing resilience. I think what's happening now is I'm hearing more language around, wow, this has been a real trauma. This has been really difficult. I'm having nightmares. I'm not sleeping well. I'm really crying more. I'm feeling more. Maybe even like for parents, I'm hearing a lot of exhaustion with the kids with school. For single people, I'm hearing a lot about loneliness. For people with elderly parents, it's certainly this feeling of just like, now I'm worried and I'm taking care of them. And then, of course, with HR as it is, it's just the recognition of all they had to do to get everybody to work from home, all they had to do to kind of keep employee engagement up. And now they're worrying about next year and the planning and the budgeting. And so there's like just, I think it's compounded stress and the acknowledgement that this is a really wild time in our history and we're living through it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, similar, I think I'm seeing some differences in people. I think in terms of responding. So again, I think what kind of got us saying this is the topic that we want to talk about today. You'd posted something on social media, and I personally didn't respond in a way that I could have done. I'm not going to say should, but I could have done. And again, that was a trigger for me that I'm at my maximum. Yeah. Like I did not respond in a kind way. I did not respond in a way that was good for you. I responded out of frustration, out of enough, like just had enough. And I'm seeing that with a lot of people. Yeah. And I talk about, for emotional fatigue, I think can show up in lots and lots of different ways. So it can come up from a withdrawal perspective, like I've just had enough and now I'm going to withdraw. It can come up in reacting to everything that we see. And I think it can also come up, and again, I think what I'm starting to see, and I think this maybe plays to the point that you've just said, like at the beginning, it was like, we'll get through it. Yeah, it's stressful, we're working hard, but we'll get through it. But I think as we're as the year has gone on, because a lot of us haven't switched off. Like, we've had no holidays, we've had no breaks, we've had no vacations, we've not really been switching off. We have been working during this pandemic in our, I'm not going to say this is normal working from home, because it absolutely isn't, but I'm definitely seeing this reaction in people where it is like, if I hear one more person tell me about their problems, like, I'm gonna explode. If I hear one more person tell me that they've been through all this and it's like, mine doesn't matter,
Right.
like, I'm gonna kick off. And I think it is that, like, one of those triggers is definitely like, if I hear one more person, like, that's a verbal cue of, I can't take anymore.
Yeah, it's like a literal breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Because HR pros have not felt seen or heard in their organizations. And so what's happened is they've been listening to everyone else, and no one has recognized they too are fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
The phrase that I've certainly said, and I hear from others, is my brain is tired. Like, there's almost this inability to keep thinking. Like, it's the ability to keep being creative and innovative and solutions oriented and brainstorming. Like, I think our brains are overloaded because our subconscious is so focused on this health crisis and the economic recession we're in and the political climate we're in and the social justice climate we're in. So, like, the thought of then being like creative in business or innovative in HR I think that's another one, just to realize like your brain is tired.
Yeah.
And to acknowledge that is probably the first place to start.
Yeah, because we need the breaks. Again, you and I will both know, we working flat out for 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day does not mean we're not productive if we do that. We need the breaks. We need to step away. We need to top ourselves up. We need different environments to kind of facilitate that kind of creativity and innovation, or we need to get ourselves in different mindsets.
Yeah.
And like, at the moment, it is go to home office or kitchen table or basements or wherever, sit in front of the screen all day, feel a bit guilty if we pop to the bathroom or if we go to get ourselves a drink, because what if somebody needs me urgently in that moment? We've got the people, I mean, it's like all over the world, right? Like Zoom fatigue, like, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Because we're not taking the breaks. I have been, for the first time ever, for my introvert self, I have been craving telephone conversations. I have been saying to people, actually, I don't want to Zoom. I want to, I need a proper conversation on a phone. And normally, like phone fear for introverts is real, everybody. I'm going to make that really clear. But I have been craving telephone conversations to get me away from a computer.
Yeah.
And so I think we've not had the different environments. We've not been creating the thinking space. Right. We have just been going. And it is taking its toll. And as you said, we have to recognize that it's taking its toll.
Yeah.
And then, like, okay, so what do I need to do about it? Do I need to switch off early? Do I need to take a day off? Do I need to, I don't know, put some music on full blast and dance around the apartment or the house? Or do I need to go for a walk? What do I need to do to give me some of that breathing space?
Yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I had someone say to me the other day, like, this is taking its toll on me. It's another good cue that something's feeling fatigue. And I said, well, then, like, start looking and being curious about where it's showing up. Like, where do you feel it's taking your toll? When is it taking its toll? How is it taking its toll? Like, ask yourself the questions. And she said, oh, it's a good point. Like, is it your brain is tired? Is it you're short-tempered? Is it you're reactive? Is it you're literally exhausted? Like, just being aware, because I don't think there's anything wrong with any of the above, and it might be a little bit of all of the above. But it's not enough just to say, I feel fatigued, or I feel it's taking its toll, without really trying to address like how and where, so you can do something about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I know there's not a lot of places we can go or things to do. In normal life, I would be, go get a massage, go to a nice restaurant, go have a martini with Kelly, go on a trip, go take a yoga class in a hot room with lots of people. Like, there's so many things you can do, free or otherwise, that are, for me at least as an extrovert, the need for social energy. But now it can be as simple as, like, am I on the sofa with a good book under a blanket with a cup of hot tea? Like, that feels really re-energizing. So it's it's like really listening to yourself, and I suppose being kind enough to yourself to say, I am worthy of these questions. I'm worthy of 5 minutes of like self-analysis around what's really pissing me off, what's really making me so tired.
Yeah.
I kind of like, I can't stand the it is what it is anymore. Like, oh, well, no, it's a pandemic and you're in HR and you're giving and giving and giving and giving. Like, you're going to be fatigued at some point. Maybe you're more resilient and have quicker ways to recover than others, but by all means, then share them with your community. People need them.
And that's an interesting point as well. Like, it is what it is. And yes, it is.
Yeah.
We don't know how much longer this is going on. So today we have had the very first vaccines have been given in the UK. So we are talking very much more now about getting things moving much more quickly. But we're still saying actually the majority of the population is not going to get vaccinated until probably February or March, maybe even April. So we've still kind of, another 4 months of that potentially. We don't know when things are going to open again. We don't know any of that kind of stuff. And so, yes, it is what it is. And if that is your coping mechanism, fine. But I don't think we can sit with it is what it is, and therefore it's okay to have emotional fatigue. And that's not to say it's not okay. But if we keep just getting lower and lower and lower and more drained, whatever happens at the back end of this, I wrote a piece a few weeks ago. I think there's a piece on the Happiness Index blog as well. But I do not want mental health to be the next pandemic.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it is what it is. It is a global pandemic. Can we change it? No. If we think about the kind of circles of control, what we can control, what we can influence, and what we have no influence or control over, a lot of what is happening at the moment is in the kind of no control and no influence. But that doesn't mean that we have to just keep allowing our mental capacity and our energy levels to just continue to deteriorate.
Yeah. I've had a big epiphany this year about mental illness, which I'm sure you've done a lot more research and speaking on this, so I'd love your insight. But I feel like maybe this is just how I was conditioned in the 1980s growing up, but mental illness to me connoted illness, real, just, okay, you're in a psychiatric ward, things are bad, you're really not well, you're not with us, you're not present. What I'm learning this year, it's physical wellness or physical illness, there are ranges of it, and at any given time we could dip in and out of being really well or really ill. And I think we shouldn't fear periods of our life where we feel mentally unwell. It doesn't mean we're, quote, crazy or out of our minds. It's I feel like this year I'm realizing, no, it's a pandemic, we're struggling, it's okay to feel less well than usual. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we talk. So one of the workshops that we created, which was the mental wellbeing for HR, and one of the big things that came out of that, one of the activities that I get HR pros to talk about in their teams, is the difference between mental health and mental wellbeing. Because I do think we call it if I said to if we, like you said, if we talk about health and fitness, all of that sort of stuff, we think about health. As soon as I think we label it as mental health, we do start to talk about the stigma of everything. So we talk about the stress, the depression, the medication, the need for counselling, therapy, doctors, interventions, all of those sorts of things. When we talk about the mental well-being, what comes up in every session that we do are the proactive things. So eating properly, getting enough sleep, staying hydrated, socializing with people. So all of the kind of proactive steps that would minimize mental health issues. Yeah. But there is no shame, and again, I've spoken about it a lot. A couple of the workshops that I'm doing on Thursday will focus on this exact thing. My burnout in 2013, I didn't realize I was hitting rock bottom. I didn't realize that I was getting to the point of overwhelming stress. I didn't realize any of that stuff. And I grew up,
my mom didn't have the vocabulary then.
I don't know if it was, again, I think some of it was the stigma. So growing up, my mum and my sister had mental health issues from a depression, anxiety perspective. I could never get my head around it, literally, because it was, I was absolutely convinced that my sister was just attention seeking. Like, what is wrong with you? You're just doing this for attention. Stop it, snap out of it, pull yourself together. It wasn't until I'd had my sons and I went into a dip of postnatal depression that it was like, oh, like this shit, like this is real, right? This is what happens. This is what it feels like. And so when I hit my burnout, and I did after that, I wanted to know what had caused that. Had I done anything? Was it the environment? Was it the situation? What had happened to my brain? What had happened to my body to get me to that point? So I did loads of training after that. I did much more in depth on kind of different bits of psychology. I did my hypnotherapy. I did my psychotherapy. I did neuroscience. I was then asked to kind of write the book on overcoming stress, develop the mental wellbeing for HR workshop. So I did all of that stuff to try and understand it. And I think that then made me even more passionate about not wanting any other HR pro to go through what I went through. So at the point that I hit burnout, nobody told me this at the time, but the two other HRDs that had been in the company that I was at had both left because they had developed serious health conditions whilst they had been at that company. The woman that then replaced me, I'm not saying this is connected in any way, shape or form, but the woman that then replaced me 6 months later had died in her sleep at a leadership development forum. So you think in one organization, 4 HRDs, one that is sadly no longer with us, one that hit severe mental and physical burnout, and 2 that developed really serious physical health conditions, like that's a problem.
Yeah.
And yet we still do not do, and I will continue banging this drum. I will continue banging this drum because we don't always recognize it. And again, sometimes when you're in the thick of it, which is why it's great if you can work with therapists, coach, counselors, any kind of talking therapy that is going to ask you the questions that you may not be asking of yourself. Like you said earlier, like, get this person to get curious, like, where does it feel? What's the difference? Yeah. When we're in it, we're not always asking those questions of ourselves.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, Lord, that's a bit like, why aren't I doing that? But then I think sometimes what happens is we start to then feel guilty because we didn't ask those questions ourselves. And we should, like, why? Like, so now I'm stupid because I should have been able to figure that out for myself. And then we can continue to spiral even more. Whereas actually, Laura, that was really great insight. I'm going to journal on that, or I'm going to get a coach, or I'm going to go to see a therapist, or I'm going to get counselling, or I'm going to do something. We are not great at asking for help.
Right.
And until we do, or until we take the steps to be looking after ourselves, we're going to continue in this spiral. And we're good at faking it, right? And I don't mean fake in a horrible sense. But we are good at, okay, I've got this employee that I need to speak to today. I've got this leader that I need to speak to today. In your case, I've got this, HR job seeker that's looking for work. In my case, like, I've got this client that I need to be working with today. We're really good at picking ourselves up to say, I need to show up for this person today. Yeah. But there is only so long that we can keep picking ourselves up and painting on the smile. And like, okay, so today I'm in work mode, and today I'm in work mode, and today I'm in work. Like, there's only so much we can keep doing that until it is like, okay, enough.
Yeah. I think it's like, to your point, asking yourselves the questions. I know it's a practice that not everybody's comfortable with. And I think those of us who've had therapy, who do a lot of journaling, who like introspective work and believe as leaders we're better for it, it's more natural to us. But those who have never done it, I will assure you, almost every CEO that you admire does self-awareness work, whether through a therapist, through a coach, through a hippie spa in Arizona. It doesn't matter. Yeah. They are working on themselves. It's impossible. Any celebrity you admire, I mean, look at Oprah or Beyonce or Michelle Obama, or anybody in politics that you admire or you look up to, they're doing the work of introspection. I know Kelly and I both, as you know, love Brene Brown, and we both recently listened to the Dolly Parton episode. I don't know if you listened to it yet. Okay, good.
I did. I listened to it Friday morning on my walk.
Okay, good. I wanted Kelly to listen to it before today because it really taught me a lot coming into this talk. Was basically, if you haven't listened to it yet, it's on Brené's Unlocking Us podcast, and she interviews Dolly Parton, who, again, top of her field, elite person who does work on herself. And she said that, she has a very open heart. And so she leads from her heart, and that can lead to heartbreak because you feel very sensitive, you're very open and receptive. And so you can drain more easily, you can be heartbroken more easily. And Brené said, that's a real price to pay. Is it worth it? And Dolly says, yes. And I thought so much of Kelly and I that we always joke, we wish we could be a little more guarded in a way that I would be able to ignore an email, or she'd be able to say no to a client, or it'd be easier for us just to shut everything off and go rest. I wouldn't change it. To be as loving and generous as we are comes from a real place of receptivity in our hearts. I think it's a strength, but there is a price to pay, as they talked about. And I think that price to pay is something that's what we have to pay attention to. And I think this is why it's hitting HR so hard. I mean, HR, as we know, is mostly filled, the majority is filled with people like us who are loving and giving and generous and kind and sensitive and emotional and I know for all of you listening going, no, it's data driven, it's numbers, it's analytics, fine. I will disagree with you all day long. It's a heartfelt profession. It's a heart-led profession. And with that comes, I think, a greater opportunity to hit fatigue. Because I think the analytical, data-driven people probably are just repressing it, and they'll hit it in 5 years, and then they realize, oh my gosh, I just moved through a pandemic. But those who are more emotionally in tune are suffering right now. And that's why it's and this month with the holidays, with the end of the year, it's a reflective time. At the time we miss our loved ones who are no longer with us. It's the time to plan ahead. It's all those things on top of everything else. So I don't know. If you feel like you're a heart-led person, just know, Kelly and I certainly feel and see you because we're the same way.
Mm-hmm. It is, and yeah, we reflected on that quite a lot last week because it is. It can be really hard, but as you said, and as we were talking about offline last week, I would much rather get to that deeper level of conversation, be able to reach out to people, be able to connect at a much deeper level than just kind of go through life having really superficial conversations with people that don't want to open up, with people that don't want to share, with other people that are guarded and protected. I want to know who the real person is.
Yeah,
and by knowing the real person, but by knowing the real person, this is where we kind of got to last week, isn't it? Sometimes that's where it can be harder for us in some respects, because we think we know the real person. Okay, so we can kind of go through. We've all seen these people. I've got a tickle in my throat now. But we've all seen the people who come across on social media as being really empathic and caring and understanding, and oh my God, I'm here for you all. And some of those people are genuine, and some of those people are just really good salespeople.
Right.
Laura and I want to take that a deeper level. So we don't want the social media image. We want to know the person.
Yeah.
And so we keep digging and keep digging and keep digging and keep digging, because it's important for us to get through those levels. And then sometimes we find out something about somebody, and it's like that can come as a real shock, because you've kind of kept going through the layers, and then something comes out and it's like, oh, wasn't expecting that, and now I feel really surprised, or I feel really hurt, or I feel really something. But I do think that is a strength, and I think having that kind of heart-led stuff is a strength, because again, I think you and I are really good at seeing past the kind of superficial BS of, well, that person's not genuine, and that doesn't feel right, that person doesn't feel authentic, that person's not ready to kind of open up, that person's not ready to have a conversation. So actually we're quite good at kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, but thinning out those people, right? And getting curious about, okay, I want to know more about that person. But then when it does come, it can be a real shock.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't swap it, because we're not happy at the superficial level. We want to keep
I mean, that's the risk of being vulnerable in HR. So what we're talking about here, and to like avoid this emotional fatigue, means you're going to eventually have to tell a peer or someone else, I'm having a hard time. It's been a rough month. It's been a rough week. And that's scary. So a lot of people don't know how to receive that information. And I'm sure you and I, Kelly, both this year have opened up to people and have had horrendous responses to that. Like I had a woman say to me, literally verbatim, this was an HR leader, oh, well, you've always worked from home, so you've been completely unaffected by this pandemic. After I had just told her how hard it has been. So the word unaffected shut me down. I no longer could share. I felt really unseen. She went on to talk about how wealthy she is and how comfortable they are and how this crisis really has been so easy for them. They have all the resources in the world. And I thought this is why HR pros sometimes struggle to open up, because not everyone knows how to react or respond. But I think you become a better HR pro from trying, because it's the classic, how do you become a better teacher? You have to learn, right? How do you become a better empath? You have to learn to be vulnerable. So it's a bit of these, like, just jump in there, just jump in the arena and try to share how you're really feeling. And some will be able to receive it and some won't, but you'll learn something. Oh, I definitely don't ever want to say that phrase to someone again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, wow, what an amazing response. Like, it's just, I guess it's the only way out is through, that great phrase. It's like, you gotta just go through this fatigue with real openness and vulnerability and acknowledge it. And yeah, you're gonna dig deep, as Kelly says, to certain people where you go, whoa, I thought they were a friend and they haven't been, or I thought that CEO was really empathetic and they're not, But you and I have both seen HR pros give amazing stories of, wow, I shared I was tired to the head of operations and he sent a gift basket, or I told the head of facilities I needed a day off and they reminded me to do it. Like, I love those stories, and I'm always so proud of HR leaders for telling their other business units, like, hey, I'm hitting a wall too here. And then they receive kindness back and they receive empathy back. And it's such a beautiful circle of, like, I did a video yesterday on everyone deserves empathy, not just our business lines. Like, it's really the biggest problem is I think we're hitting fatigue because we don't feel worthy of receiving advice or help or an ear to listen. And I think we should practice.
I also don't think we're good enough. And some points that you just touched on there, like some of those people that have shared with CEOs, facilities, whoever, this is how I'm feeling. Enough of us aren't particularly good about how we're feeling. Yeah. So you and I are able to, so how are you?
Right.
How are you feeling? But a lot of the time, the response that we get back is, oh, well, I had a really busy weekend. I had a really busy this. I've done this. It's like, I really, like, it's the greatest every time. I don't give a shit what you've been doing.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? Like, tell me how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And there are so many of us that are still really struggling with I am feeling tired. Yeah. I am feeling drained. I am feeling low. I am feeling happy. I am feeling optimistic. I am feeling whatever the word. Not enough of us are very good at talking about how we're feeling. Right. I still get so much, right? Okay, so how are you today? Did you have a good weekend? Did you, oh my God, like I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this. Like, let's take it. So again, with that deepness that you want to go to, it's like, okay, the doing is here. How are you?
Let me stop you on that point. This is intriguing to me. So I just wrote down, do less, feel more, which is a phrase I've always loved also. That's like just kind of making room for feeling. So why do we think HR pros, we know they're hitting fatigue because they're not addressing how they're feeling, or may not even be questioning how they're feeling. The question then for me is, so why? Why aren't they?
So many of us feel that we have to justify it. And again, I think some of this comes back to the values, some of this comes back to the recognition. It's like, if I tell you the 10,000 things that I did yesterday, I might get a, well done, Laura. That sounds like you really achieved a lot. Well done for that, Laura. We do not. And I was having a conversation with a guy last week. He's asked me to do a talk at an event next March, but he was like, what are the themes? And I came up with, we need to do something to recognize more of HR. We have to recognize more of HR. So I would love to see something in your entire event next year that says, bloody well done, HR, for everything that you did last year. We see you. And he's like, oh, we could get some CEOs to record some messages and play them back to the HR community. I was like, if you can get CEOs, like, amazing.
Oh I want to see this event.
Like, yeah, this is now an event that I want to be part of, right? So we're kind of having this conversation, but I do think we go to the doing. It's like we have to justify, like, I need to tell you how busy I am. Because if I tell you how busy I am, you will then see that I'm successful, that I'm doing, that I'm achieving, that I'm worthy of my role. Whereas actually, if it is, right, okay, so Laura, how are you feeling today? Do you know what, Kelly? I just feel, whatever the word is that you want to use to explain it, but the feeling doesn't always give us what we've done. Right? This morning, I woke up feeling exhausted. But then it's like, oh, well, I'm exhausted because I was training all weekend, because I did this, because I did this, because, and it's like, who am I justifying that to? Like, today I just feel exhausted.
Yeah.
I am allowed to feel exhausted. We are allowed to give ourselves permission for how we feel.
Yeah. I am guilty. I don't want to say I'm guilty of this, but I do this because I find where it happens for me, especially in December, is like, did I do enough? The word enough, these are words that Kelly and I trigger us all the time. Did I do enough to earn a break? Am I worthy of a break? I don't know if I did enough. So I have to literally look at data to be like, well, you emailed 300 new HR people, you made 10 videos, you were on 5 podcasts, you were in 6 Wall Street Journal articles, you did blah, blah, blah. Okay, maybe I could take a day off. It's bizarre because I am my own boss and I treat myself like I'm micromanaged under like a authoritarian, it's like, but to your point, it's because our self-worth is so entangled with our activity and our doing and our productivity.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Sarah's just commented, Sarah or Sarah. Remember to be a human being rather than a human doing. That is exactly it.
I love that. That's so hard. It's hard.
And I talk to lots of clients about, right, okay, so how do you want to feel by the end of the week? How do you want to be by the end of the week? If we could remove our to-do list and create a being list, like, how do I want to be by the end of today? Do I want to feel exhausted and washed up? Or do I want to feel happy and calm or rested? Or like, I sometimes think if we could focus much more on that, the activities and conversations that we then have could really, really help with that. And again, Laura, I know you and I have both spoken about, like, we are overachievers, overperformers, overpushers. Like, we go over. It's like, to whose standard? I can remember, what year would it have been? Probably 2015. And I'd been asked to do a couple of books. I was writing the stress book, and I'd been asked to write an HR one for Business Expert Press. So I was doing these couple of books, growing the business. We had our kind of first team members that had been recruited. So kind of doing all this stuff. And I got talking to a woman who was a business coach. I wasn't speaking to her as a coach, but we'd kind of met mutually and we were having this conversation. And this is a business coach, right? She's still a business coach. But when she found out that I was doing writing, her immediate comment to me was, your business cannot be doing very well then if you have got time to be writing 2 books this year.
Right.
And I was like, wow, like, but if those books are part of my goals, objectives, my own level of success or meaning or purpose or whatever, if I'd have said, I don't know, I'm running 2 development programs or I've taken on 2 new clients, would she have then said your business can't be doing that well? But for me, it was important that I did those because, again, I had different messages that I wanted to get out. But her focus was, if you have time, she's like, well, and again, this comes back to like, what's her issue? What's my issue? But for her, well, I'd love to be able to write a book, but I just haven't got time because I'm just so busy within my business. Busy does not mean we are successful.
Yeah.
Busy does not mean we are achieving. Busy does not mean that it's good for us. Like, every single one of us can be busy from the minute we wake up in the morning to the minute we go to bed at night. That doesn't mean we're achieving anything.
Yeah.
Like, I can literally be busy from like all day, but I can also have days it's like, what did I actually achieve? What have I, like, I haven't done anything. I've just been busy.
You know, what's coming up for me here is also it's this comparison that we feel in HR. I know I do. So when things are tough and I feel fatigued, it's really easy for me to be like, well, other recruiters are so busy, or other HR pros seem to be having a very easy time with this pandemic, or everybody else seems so much more relaxed about this whole thing. I must be crazy for what I'm feeling. And I worry that that's probably coming up for a lot of others. Like, well, if I share my feelings and they're doing okay or they're doing great, that's so scary. And that is, I mean, that's a vulnerability to share. Yeah, to share you're writing a book to someone judgy. I mean, I've had so many examples of that, and we don't even have enough time to share them all, of people judging me at every turn of being a business owner based on probably their own stuff.
We do not know what other people, so again, from that comparison perspective, we really don't know. If we're looking at people on social media, we only know what they're telling us.
Right.
And the majority of people are not saying, I'm having a shit day, I'm feeling exhausted, I'm burnt out, I don't know what I've achieved today, I'm feeling really rough. Like, the majority of us aren't doing that. The majority of us are, I've got a new client, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We've had a great week at work, we had this team meeting. Because again, like we I suppose we want to show the best of ourselves. And we want to be motivating and inspiring and doing all of that sort of stuff. But I also think the flip of that are people that are struggling or rock bottom or fatigued or anything else. That's when we then get into the comparison. Like, if I'm feeling, and this comes back to the feeling, if I'm feeling, and it doesn't happen very often, because again, empath, overachiever, comparison syndrome, imposter syndrome, all of that stuff. Like, I still have all of that. But if I'm like, if today is a good day, and I'm feeling top of my game, I'm not comparing myself to anyone else.
Right.
But if I'm exhausted and fatigued and tired and all of that sort of stuff, that's when I go into the comparison.
Exactly.
Oh my God, how did that person get that speaking gig? Why is that person doing that? Why is that? Well, it's okay for that person to be posting that in motivation.
Exactly.
Like, blah, blah, blah. But I don't do that when I'm energized and feeling good and feeling confident. I only go into comparison when I'm at the bottom.
Same. I will say this, though, for anyone who feels like on social media everyone's so perfect and all their HR peers are so happy, I think what Kelly and I are talking about too with opening up, it's like, do it on a one-to-one call, do it on a one-to-one Zoom, do it with your coworkers that you feel trusting with. The reality is you will find a couple of people, and literally that means 2 or 3, who become a safe space for you to really share that, but you need it. And you're going to try a few others that don't work, like the example I shared, or I'm sure Kelly has many that she could share in the future too. It's like, but you have to be brave enough to be the first one in the arena saying, it's December, it finally has hit me, this pandemic is hard, I'm exhausted. And yes, you might be a little scared to say that, but it's like making people feel less alone. And I hope anyone watching or hearing this feels less alone, to know that, like, you're not nuts for feeling like, you've hit some new wall here. It's a long race. We had no idea how long it was going to be. We fueled up and trained for the marathon, and at mile 26, someone said, keep going, and we don't know how long. And of course, we're hitting some new walls.
Yeah. Lots of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I think, like, when you find those people, again, you and I have cried, laughed, spoken, supported, developed, moaned, motivated, picked each other up, and we have done that with some other people, again, that we've kind of got within that safe circle.
Yeah.
Some that you can release and vent to and have those sorts of conversations. So creating that safe network, again, if we refer back to our hero, Brené, but it is that kind of square squad. It is that safe space where you can be open, where you can let it all out, where you can be honest.
Yeah.
And again, if you haven't got that within your circle, maybe that does need to be a professional. Maybe that is a counselor, a therapist, a coach, maybe it's a colleague, maybe it is a family member, maybe it's just somebody within that network. But having that level of release, because I think the more that we talk about it, the more that we show that vulnerability, the more that we can let it all out.
Yeah.
Not that it's easy. I think, again, sometimes you kind of have that release and then it's like, oh, I need another release and another release. But it becomes normal. Like, it's not normal to hold all this stuff in,
right,
and keep, like, again, you just referred to a marathon. Like, if this is in marathon terms, like, we must be in our 9th ultra marathon of the year.
right.
Like, no amount of training can prepare you for 9 ultra marathons,
right,
back after back after back.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when we talk about emotional intelligence, I know for those where this is not a strength, they may not understand why we're talking about this. And I would say, like, this is how you become a more strategic HR partner. It's like knowing yourself better and knowing how to articulate yourself better, knowing how to understand how you're feeling and what's coming up for you and what you're experiencing makes you more empathic, makes you more creative, makes you more innovative. Like I said, I just don't know one successful, however we define success, I don't know one successful person who isn't deeply self-reflective and introspective. And I think it's work you have to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're almost done, everyone.
Yeah, no. And Laura has asked for, so do you want to tell us then what's happening next week? Because Laura's asked for an extra conversation.
Well, normally we do this every 2 weeks, but I said December feels like such a needy month. I think people need to feel this community. So we're going to see if we can squeeze this in next Tuesday. So stay tuned. We're going to look at our calendars. But Kelly had such a wonderful idea of next week's topic.
Yeah, so again, I was thinking some of the conversations that Laura and I have been having over the last couple of months are like tough and challenging conversations. And what I really want to do, there has been so much, and Laura's alluded to some of it in the conversation today, there has been so much incredible stuff that has been happening this year. And there have been so many great examples of people lifting each other up, of people supporting one another, of people that have been motivating and inspiring, all of that sort of stuff. So next week, we want to be able to share some of those examples of some great conversations that we've had, of some great things that we have seen happening. So we want to kind of, I suppose, leave you next week with maybe a bit more kind of inspiration and motivation for some of the great stuff that has been happening this year, that may give you ideas, that may give you hope, that may give you inspiration, or just give you a little bit of a lift. So we're going to pull out our own examples, but also if you have seen great examples of anything this year, let us know. If you've got people that you want to particularly mention and give a shout out to, let us know, and we will do as many of those as we possibly can next week as a bit of a kind of well done HR community. This is the stuff that's been happening, and yeah, so we're gonna try and do a bit more of a well done and shout out next week.
Well, and it'll show people what the power of vulnerability does, like by opening up, here's some feel good moments. So I'm excited about that. And find us all on social media. You know where we are. Kelly will have this up already on her YouTube. I'll have it up on mine probably by tomorrow. And you can watch this whenever you want.
You absolutely can. So yeah, so Laura's tag is up there. So you can find Laura on everywhere. LinkedIn, Laura Mazzullo, Twitter and Instagram as Eastside Staff. And you can find me, Kelly Swingler. So yeah, LinkedIn. I've taken Twitter off my phone over the last week, and I actually feel a lot better for it. Like, I'm not scrolling, not getting wound up, but I will check it tomorrow.
Yep, everyone finds the places that work for them. That's why there are a few options. Whatever works for you, we'll see you there.
But thank you all. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. Do let us know if you want to give shout outs next week. And then we'll think of our final topic for the year, for the week after. Just before Christmas. So thank you for joining us. Lovely to have seen you all. If you're watching on the replay, we hope you enjoyed. And we'll see you all again at some point next week.
Perfect. Bye.
Now, bye.